Keiko O'Brien is doing an isosome study on some populations of Cardilia, but they're turning out to have these really weird polymorphisms. What a headache. Dr. Balthus wants to do a study on the laticifer ontogeny of the Callidian thornflower, and Chief Miles O'Brien is not too fond of Tom Corbin. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4, Episode 17, Night Terrors, story by Sherry Goodhartz, teleplay by Pamela Douglas and the Jerry Taylor, directed by Cirroc's pal Les Landau. This was March 16th, 1991. Where were you? We've got a very special guest, everybody. Can you believe it? Stunt woman, stunt actress, Rosine Ace Hatem. How you doing, Ace?
Hey, everybody. Hi, doing great.
Awesome. And
Is that how you I'm great. I just wanted to make sure. Rosine, that's a great name.
Yeah, I go by Ace, though, because everybody couldn't remember my name, and it was Rosie, and I'm like, I'm not a flower. So when I moved to LA 44 years ago, I took the name Ace from Ace Bailey of the Boston Bruins. He was my hockey player who actually perished in 9/11, who was a scout for the Kings, and then was on a scout in Boston, flying from Logan back to LA, and perished in 9/11 on flight 175.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
Yeah, very bizarre. I've been carrying his name on since 1972.
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Well, you do have the nickname Ace, and looking you up, there's a good reason for it. You're practically still working. I saw that you had some credits, like up until just recently. This is nuts, but let's get into this for a little bit. Very quickly, one of the first things I noticed, of course, was you worked with a very good friend of ours, especially of Cirroc's, by the name of Dennis Matalone.
Danger!
Danger and Ace.
Danger, yes.
Danger Dog.
What can you tell us about working with him?
Go ahead, Cirroc.
Oh.
I mean, he's a firecracker. I love him. I mean, you know, he comes in there, he's a ball of energy. He loves what he does. He comes to work fully fired up. He's had like 10 shots of espressos. That's what he feels like when he's on set.
But he still does.
And he's just a lovable guy too. I mean, there's almost nothing I can say about him that's not flattering. He's just a great people person. He's somebody that's fun to be around. He takes time to explain things to you. He doesn't talk down to you. He talks level with you and gives you the straight up. And he's his number one concern is safety. He's all about that safety on that set. And so, you know, when he's there that he's thought of all the protocols and he's put all the procedural things in effect to make sure that the actors are safe and the stunt people are safe. So that's what I know about Dennis Matalone. Plus, he loves his dog.
Yeah, I got mine right here.
Yeah. What got you into, being in the stunt industry? I mean, that takes a certain kind of courage to me.
It does. Yeah. And I was a little ahead of the curve. It's not like it is today. I mean, when I decided I wanted to be a stuntman, it was 1972 outside of a little town of Boston. And, you know, you didn't have anything that you have today like Facebook. So I kind of planned my education around it, where I went to a 2-year school, and then I transferred from a small private school outside of Boston to UCLA. Didn't know anybody, didn't know anything. Talk about stunts. Everybody asked me, which a big stunt you do? I said, survived LA for 40 years without becoming a hook or a drug addict or an alcoholic. So stuck to my New England roots. That's where I'm here now, doing the thing that I promised my mom and dad I would do, is take care of them, sacrificing, I don't like that word sacrifice, but making dad a priority right now instead of my career. I still want to work. I still love the work. It's completely different than when I started. But I loved it when I was in it and in my prime. And Danger he was one of my buddies. We used to go meet at Patty's for breakfast and have the dogs. And he was the original highball guy. He was one of the, besides Star Robinson, that was his call to fame too, was the high falls and working on Star Trek and the Star Trek Generations. And he was just, like you said, he's a ball of energy. I almost think like we're brother and sister because we have the same hair, the same energy, both love dogs. You know,
Yes.
and you might, we're brothers
Yeah.
from another mother or something, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Danger and Ace sounds like a dynamic duo. That sounds like a
Right.
comic book right there.
You sound like superheroes.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a superhero, right? Well, what was
Yeah.
that? What was that
Yeah.
show that he had? I'm blanking
Greatest
out on it.
American
The
hero.
greatest American hero. Yeah.
Hero, yeah. He got his butt kicked. And those are back in the days where we didn't have the greatest technology. It was still emerging, and now the ear rams and the wire work and the harnesses, they're just like a totally different. It's a totally different level of technology, than it was when he was doing those hardcore stunts.
But so let me follow up on that, because you mentioned that you to LA, you went to UCLA, you were getting yourself prepared to enter into the industry. And what did that preparation, what did that mean for you? Does that mean studying certain subjects in school, or does that mean getting your martial arts on and figuring out how to stay in combat and physically train? What did that mean for you?
Let's remember the era, the 70s and the 80s. Okay, so I was doing martial arts back in the 70s. I was the only female in my dojo for 4 years. That's another reason why they call me Ace, because my sensei started calling me Rosie, Roxanne, and I'm like, Sensei, I'm not a flower. So, because you got a nickname and go, yeah, Ace, and it's stuck. And then I leave, I'm Lebanese and Italian. I told my parents for 2 years and my boyfriend at the time, I'm leaving, I'm going to California to be a stunt woman. Everybody thought I was nuts. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. We're talking completely male oriented. The whole scene in LA was very different with, what it is now. I went from a small private school to UCLA. I studied kinesiology, got my degree in kinesiology. Didn't have schools like they have now, didn't have meet and greets, you had to be in LA. That's where the work was. There was no Atlanta. There was no, New Mexico. LA was the place.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me 5 years to get my first job with Gene. I used to train with Uncle Gene Judah LaBelle, who was another icon. I'm sure you worked with him. And Benny the Jet Yukitas. So when I got my A card, I crashed a commercial. They didn't even know what kickboxing was. I literally had to explain it to them. So I was a fighter before, like a different level. Because when I got in, most of the women were cowgirls, girlfriends, just different. It was a different era. So that's how I got in. But it took me a long, long time to get. Anybody else would have quit, but I was just so stubborn and naive and wanted it so bad that, it's not like nowadays, the kids don't even have to hustle. They just send off a text or an email or, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm available. Back in the day,
right.
Remember we had to go to our Thomas Guide and go
and newspapers. Yeah, the jobs were in newspapers.
Thumbs down.
Pictures and resumes and
yeah.
How do you live like that?
Well, it was day-to-day grind. You want to talk about rejection on a regular basis? You're looking at it here.
My first time, just to admit, my first time, full disclosure, of hearing about kickboxing was from watching a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. So I didn't know anything about kickboxing.
I think the movie was called Kickboxer, right?
I think so. Everything I learned came from there.
Yeah. Well, Ace, let me ask you this. Because this is something I read about you, and I could be wrong, but for this particular episode, Night Terrors, where you were Marina's stunt double, and you were carried up on these wires to do this whole scene, a bunch of scenes.
Yeah.
I heard it took a full day.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that? Were there a lot of starting and stopping? What was the situation there?
I think we were probably just a skeleton crew of maybe a second unit. And I remember that was one of the first times I was in wires. And like I said, they're not comfortable, and it's not like they are today. And you got to remember, I'm wearing a harness that's bulky with buckles and chrome and leather and straps, and sounds kind of sadistic. And sometimes it is. But, when you're up on the wire,
I'm listening,
and your blood's being cut off. It takes a long time. You got to take breaks. You got to come down. And they had me roll, spin this way, spin that way. You got to look ethereal, whatever they were looking for. So it does take a long time. And do you want to hear a funny story about that day that I actually remember?
Oh
Because
yeah. Oh yeah.
if you saw me, I mean, I was a dead-on ringer for her. Eyes, hair, body, makeup, hair and makeup loved me. You know, our hair was the same, skin tone, my body type.
Did they dye
And
your hair? A quick question. Was your hair
no,
dyed for that?
it was actually the same color as hers.
Okay.
My hair
Okay.
was a lot darker then and a lot longer, but you know, when you get older, that's what happens. And so what happened was, you know, that's a skin tight bodysuit, and you got a bulky harness you have to hide and smooth over. And you know, and I remember I was told through the grapevine, through the production grapevine, that she didn't like the way I looked because I would look quote unquote too big. And in actuality, we were basically the same size, you know. And the wardrobe people were like, "You're an awesome double." They loved me because we were the same size and all that. And then that she would say that about a lot of her doubles, but
Marina complaining about something? That's unheard of.
No.
so but I was a really good double for her, and it's really hard. Like you try to smooth out the harness underneath the tight jumpsuit, and you know, like you said, you're spinning and you're hanging and things like that. So it was, if I can't remember correctly, it was if it wasn't the first time I was on wires, it was one of the first few times because the wire work, like now, that's all you see nowadays is wire work, and it's just like I said, it's just such a different animal now than it was when we started. But
I imagine it was more restrictive, the earlier wires and stuff. It wasn't as kind of
correct. And now you get them custom made. They have designs for the women, so for the chest area. So it's a totally different thing. That was like a generic harness that I borrowed from one of the stunt guys and the riggers, the stunt riggers, and you make it fit. So now you have your own harness. You go in. There's places you go. You get them molded to your body, and it's a totally different. Which
now,
is a good thing.
Do you remember if that B team that was doing the camera roll or second team that was doing camera on you for the stunt, was that done at the Paramount Lot 1? Yeah. And also, was that a green screen that we were looking at?
Yeah. Yes to both. I do for sure. We were at Paramount, and I believe it was a green screen because I remember Jake. I can't remember, it was like Jeff Haberstadt. I'm trying to think of some of the rigger guys that helped me in and out of my harness and flew me. That's off the top of my head who I can remember. Yeah, I was definitely on Paramount. I loved going to Paramount. So yeah, that was I was like a little kid. Are you kidding me? I'm like, yay, Paramount, yay, fly, yay, you know. So yeah.
Now, did it matter to you that it was Star Trek, or was it just another stunt gig?
It was a job. It was, and honestly, I mean, probably shouldn't say this on this, but I was just so focused on getting work and hustling all the time, and you know, so to me, I was like, and then plus I was like, oh, I get to fly. I get to be something new and exciting. So yeah, because you know, when we work, if you work a day and then you're not on it as a regular series, you don't really get the whole continuity of what you're doing until you see the end product. You know, so for me, I was on a stage, on a green screen with my buddies, hanging, flipping, and having a good time.
Flipping out.
I've got a quick question for you. You were also in the movie First Contact. That was in '96, I believe. Do you remember anything with regards to working on the actual movie? You were also in another episode called Power Play of the Next Generation. You were a hostage, but you were a nightclub patron. I've got a picture here. See if you remember this from Memory Alpha. If you could see that.
Oh yeah, I have that. Yeah, yes. I didn't know the name of the show. Yes, that was when we were downtown in the 1940s dress. That dress, I was told, be careful, don't rip it. It was 1940s, skin tight, with the aluminum, with the metal zippers, with already the thing strutting, and they're like, "Don't move." You know, we're running, we're dodging, we're jumping, and that was. Yes, I remember that day. That was such a fun day because there were so many stunt people. I think Ronnie Rondell was the coordinator. Awesome Stunts Unlimited original guy. And that was, I'm trying to think, what did I say? That was downtown at the train station, Grand Central Station. So it all fit. Yeah, that was, I forgot the name of the movie, but I knew it was a Star Trek movie. I just didn't know which. Yeah,
Can
that
I
was
ask you a question? Not to be too personal, because I don't need the numbers, but I would like just the general information. When you appear on camera, like you did in that particular episode, where it's your face and it's not just using your stunt, are you paid also as a person on camera, or are you paid as a normal stunt pay?
you're just stunt ND, nondescript stunt player. Back
Okay.
then, now I think things have changed. Stunt utility, stunt rigger, blah blah blah.
Okay.
I think more what you're talking about is when you do the commercials where they say, "Oh, you on camera? Are you not?" You know. But then
Right.
that was feature film, ND stunt. You know, there was probably, I don't know, 20 or 30 of us that day, and then I have a really good picture. I didn't have time to do any digging pictures, but you know, back then you weren't allowed to take pictures. Remember? So
Yeah, I know.
so the fact that he found that, but I do have one picture Wardrobe gave me with that dress, and I have a picture with Tom Hoff. You must know Tom. He was a regular. He was always not a Klingon. Oh my God, I'm blanking out.
Vulcan,
Vulcan.
Romulan. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if he was in makeup, then it'd be harder for me to recognize people.
Yeah,
I didn't even know my best friend when I saw about him.
You're right. That's right, Aaron. Well, Ace, we only have you for another minute here, and we really
Okay.
appreciate you taking the time. It's been amazing.
You're
We
welcome.
really appreciate it. But there's just one more thing I got to ask you, which is you are still working. You have credits as recently as this year on Beverly Hills Cop doing stunts.
Yeah, that was
What's
a fun one.
going on, Ace? How much longer are you going to do stunts?
I want to be like Sandy Campbell and work into my 80s and keep going and going. So everybody out there, I'm available no matter where, no matter what. Just give me a couple of days that's notice. I'll still hit the ground for you. But like I said, my dad right now is my biggest stunt. So I still love to work. I want to work so bad. I don't get the calls as often. So maybe this will help and see you out on one of the conventions or something. That would be really fun to talk about and meet other people out there. But thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And brought back
Absolutely.
You brought back some fun memories for me.
It's been amazing.
That's great.
You were wonderful, and thank you so much, Ace. This is really cool.
Wait a minute. Come here, Cooper. Hold on 1 second.
Here comes Cooper.
All right. We got a cameo.
Cooper, this is for Danger. He's from California.
For Dennis, yeah. All right. Well, stick around for just a second for us, Ace. Everybody at home, you stick around. We will be right back on the 7th Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Sirach, the Game Changer Lofton.
The Game Changer.
What's the game? You name it. I bet you're pretty good at poker.
I play poker, yeah. I'm pretty good at poker.
Yeah, I can see that. All right.
Mean Domjot game, too.
Play Domjot, human! Oh, wait, that's later. That's from the episode Tapestry. You'll be like, whoa, that's actually a pretty good impression of a Nausicaan. Okay, here it comes. It's a great episode. Oh, you know that blue Picard, that blue shirt Picard toy I have? It's from that one episode.
Yes.
So here are the trivioids of the week. The crew of the Enterprise is looking for the USS Britann, although Picard called it the Britann once, at one point. Counselor Troy, right? I don't know if you heard that, but he did.
I did.
He called it the Britann once. Counselor Troy invites herself to an away mission. 34 crew members of the Britann seem to have killed each other. Keiko O'Brien is doing an isosome study on some populations of Cardilia, but they're turning out to have these really weird polymorphisms. What a headache. Dr. Balthus wants to do a study on the Latissifer ontogeny of the Callidian thornflower, and Chief Miles O'Brien is not too fond of Tom Corbin. Worf shows up late to a meeting because he was detained. Picard tells Riker to take a nap. Captain Picard hardly recalls dreams. If hydrogen is mixed with calendanium, it is extremely volatile. Data tells Riker they need to generate a violent energy release without using conventional means. I bet Riker's up for the task. All right. He's like, Commander Riker, you need to generate a violent energy release without using conventional means. And Riker's like, you've come to the right man.
You mean left-handed?
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. Thanks for taking me there. No, I wanted to make a highlight of something, something serious. Um, I think this episode, and I may be mistaken, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I did see a really all woman collaboration on the writing team for this episode, and that was one thing
Yep.
that kind of jumped out at me. We had Pamela Douglas, Jerry Taylor, teleplay, and story by Sherry Goodharts.
Hmm.
That was one thing that jumped out because we didn't see. I mean, Jerry Taylor is the name that we see a lot, but these other two writers are new people from the credits. In my opinion, I don't see their name popping up that much. So I was pleased to see the collaboration here when it was an all woman script, essentially story and teleplay. That was a special thing for me. On top of
Absolutely.
that, yeah, on top of that, it was fantastic and a fantastic episode. But I did like the fact. I do want to highlight that that's a special thing to see, and in science fiction in general, it's a great to see that was happening in 1991 that this came out.
Yeah, that's a great point. I did a quick look at Sherry Goodhart's. She wrote for 3 episodes of The Next Generation. The first of which you'll recognize was actually in the 3rd season. She wrote the screenplay for it. She wrote the full episode. The Most Toys. That was when that really rich guy Kivas Faggio had Data, and he was telling Data to take off his clothes or do weird stuff like that, But it actually ended up being like a really good episode. And then this one, and then in the 5th season, she also has a story by credit for the episode Violations. So you'll know about that one a little later. And
Yeah,
then looking up Pamela Douglas, of course, we all know Jerry Taylor. She's a giant in this industry.
yeah,
But as for Pamela Douglas, this was her only credit in Star Trek. She also wrote for shows like Paradise and a show called Ghost Rider and a few others. So she's definitely been around as well. But yeah, really cool.
yeah. And then also, Les Landau directed this episode. Thought he did a great job as well because he did capture the terror and the horror that I felt on the ship. It felt eerie. And Les did a great job in that regard too, as well.
Yeah, I actually noticed a couple times some really good camera movements, like kind of sweeping up and following in and, little things like that, that actually looked really good and certainly enhanced the scene. And so, I don't usually make too many notes of camera shots or directorial, things, but like when it hits you over the head because it's really good, that's when I notice it. I notice it when it's like stellar, and a couple of these were stellar, I thought. So big shout out to him for sure.
Yeah, and lighting choices.
Mm-hmm.
There were some really good lighting choices. The jumps out to me was the Worf scene where he's kind of almost going to do some kind of Klingon suicide move.
Yeah.
The lighting in that with the red and the dark, it just it felt mood appropriate. The lighting also in the sick bay with Dr. Crusher when she has her little nightmare moment with those bodies coming,
That was cool.
sitting up on her. That was also very well shot and well lit, by the production. So shout out to everybody involved with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just remember the shot that really stood out to me was in Riker's quarters when Picard tells him to go take a nap and he's walking in and he just kind of like turns around and looks and the camera kind of sweeps up to him. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I think this was Keiko O'Brien's maybe 3rd episode?
Looks like
so
it. So
now she and O'Brien are starting to become characters. And Gillespie, we've seen Gillespie now a couple times at least. And also Ensign Rager. Remember the ensign at the helm? This was her second episode, I think. Ragermeister, very good.
Yeah.
And here's something fun. So she was replaced by Ensign Lynn, right? When she wasn't feeling well, and so they replaced her with Ensign Lynn. Well, check this out. Tracy Coco was in this episode too, by the way. But Ensign Kenny Lynn was played by Brian Toshi. And Brian Toshi is no stranger to Star Trek because he was in an original series episode way back in 1968. He played Ray, one of the kids in the season 3, episode 4 episode, And the Children Shall Lead. We're not up there yet, but it's pretty interesting that he got to play Star Trek again. But what I really was excited about was I knew I recognized him, and it wasn't from the original series. It was from Police Academy. He was Nogata, Cadet Nogata in Police Academy 3. I loved that movie. I was horrified to see that it got a 5.4 IMDb rating. I was like, that movie practically raised me. And I got a 5 point. I bet if we saw it now, we'd be like, nah, this movie's not very good. But I loved it as a kid.
It's funny because I've seen a lot of movies like that where I thought they were the best movie ever, and then I rewatch it as an adult and say, yeah, this doesn't age, it just doesn't hit as well.
No. Some do, some don't. One last thing on him is he also did the voice in one of my favorite character in one of my favorite cartoons as a kid. The show was called Bionic 6, and he played Karate 1. So he was one of the kids in Bionic 6, one of the best TV shows ever. Anyway, nice. Enough on him. Great stuff. I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy.
Yeah, and that was another thing that I noticed about this episode was, and they should have been doing this more often. The ancillary crew members that are on board the Enterprise should have more roles like this. Totally. Just bar conversations, elevator conversation, just more incorporation into the feel of the crew, instead of just being the background person that's sitting there that doesn't say anything in the middle of conversations and just is basically human set dressing. Make them let's have a familiarity with people. Let's talk to people. I know they have to write a bigger check because people become reoccurring and they expect that more money because of lines and whatnot. But I mean, that makes a big difference for me for the feel of the camaraderie of the ship.
Totally.
It feels weird if you were on any kind of vessel, if you were on a Navy ship and you're sitting there and there's just you walk past people every day, you're in a small room with them and they don't say anything. And you're there would be some conversation. Hey, what's going on? How's your day going? I mean, just little stuff in general. So I enjoyed that about this episode too. I like O'Brien at the bar talking with that with Gillespie. Yeah, I like that. I liked seeing Ensign Rager. I like seeing the people get incorporated into the storyline. So. That was another thing that jumped out for me as well.
Definitely. It just makes it feel more real when 13 people have lines instead of 7. You can still give your 7 or 8 the most
more lines. Yeah.
But having somebody say a couple things just makes it, Deep Space Nine was great about that. Next Generation, did a little bit. Original series did even less. But, I feel like Discovery felt like they did it too much. It's just kind of like everybody. I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. But I do love that stuff. Here's something. Yeah. So I remember this episode. And when it started to play, I remember going like, oh, yeah. This is boring for me. I can't. It's just, like a mystery kind of a scary thing, but Star Trek doesn't really get scary, so it's only kind of scary. It was just kind of not really good for me. And then towards the last half of the last third, I was like, actually, this is actually pretty good. It's smart. It's a great, especially the end, the way they solved it. And when they realized that this alien race was already this whole time trying to contact them and tell them this plan, because this is the logical way out. And that, And then, of course, we all thought the same thing. We're like, yeah, all she has to do is say now, and they come to that. And I was like, actually, this is really smart. It's a really good episode. And our good friend, Dr. Anne Marie Siegel, who is a doctor, she said that this is totally like, it's a legitimate thing. She started to say like, after like 32 or 33 hours, that's when you start going nuts, or something like that. So shout out to her.
Yeah. I was thinking of what that kind of, I guess it's not complete sleep deprivation, but it is the kind of sleep that you need most. Deprivation, that deep REM sleep. And so, yeah, I mean, it would make you go crazy. It would, it was a good little mystery. There's holes in little everywhere you go in these shows.
Sure.
What bothered me the most, for example, was I was like, "Oh, now your powers work, Troy." You know what I mean? It's like you can't bust it out every once in a while. We ran into an alien ship before that we needed help understanding. You didn't say you felt the presence of, like, for example, they went on the ship and she knew there was another person alive. And not only that, but knew exactly what room they were in. She's like, over here, right there. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like a homing device. This skill you have, right?
She's a tricorder.
Yeah, it's better than one of those air tabs that you use for your iPhone. It's like, seriously, if you have this kind of ability, I could have seen it used many times before in episodes where they've run into alien life or other kind of life. That would have been nice to know a hint of what it was thinking or feeling. So that's the only thing that I was like, oh, now your powers work. She's like, wait, Captain, I have something to say. I feel something. I'm like, oh, now you feel something. And from far away, like from the ship to another side of the other, you know what I mean? Like, she can really feel far away. Like, it's not like it has to be somebody directly in front of her within touching distance. I can sense that there's a person alive on another ship over there. So, like, if you have this radar ability, I could have seen it doesn't get applied enough, in my opinion. It doesn't get used.
Yeah, and like she can pinpoint. Like, she's like, there's somebody still alive on this ship. He's in that room. He's about 35. I think he has to pee. He loves oatmeal. Like, she was really in tune. But maybe it's no coincidence that when you get an all-female writing team, they actually put some effort into the female character and the powers that she's supposed to have, and not just a use of her talents, like or her innate abilities, but also that she was part of figuring out the solution, which is not part of being an empath. It's just her brain. Like when she was telling Data, no, that we got to keep it really simple. You know what I mean? Like, she's even telling Data, hang on, reel it in. Let's keep it simple, and things like that. She's part of the solution, not just as a sensor, but as far as like using her brain. And she's in with these meetings, and Dr. Crusher was in with the meetings, and she was talking. It was so cute seeing everybody like falling asleep, like, not to go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
But Riker acting tired was he looked like a caveman. I loved it.
Actually, I thought Patrick Stewart did a great job as acting tired as well. I caught myself laughing when that door was chiming. Door chime, door chime, door chime. His face, like, and then when it finally was somebody for real and he heard a knock, he's like, it threw him off. And I just like that. I thought that was great. Just moments like that, I felt like he delivered on. So yeah, it was great to see that huge butterfly right there. Unbelievable.
Kind monarch?
No,
like yellow, orange,
black and yellow,
black and yellow. Monarch. But yeah, so back to the ladies, there must be something to that where, you got 3 ladies right in this episode. Maybe they're like, all right, stop wasting these actresses' time and let's give them something to work with. They already have these great abilities. They already have these great skills. We understand their personalities. Let's use them. So, maybe it's not a coincidence there.
Yeah, I felt like that. also felt like, it's amazing to me how Data essentially is this centerpiece of this show.
Mm-hmm.
And this episode is just another affirmation of that fact for me, because essentially there comes a point when the Enterprise is in the most trouble, where being a human is actually a disadvantage to some degree.
Yeah, Data's a cheat code.
He's a cheat code, and so that makes him like this underpinning story. Underpinning to the story of most of these adventures that they go on. And I've noticed now, like even in the episode where he had to erase everybody's memory and they couldn't ask the question about let's go find out what's going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
Then that Groundhog Day type episode where he had to get everything right so that Picard wouldn't ask to go farther and inspect whatever it was that they were inspecting. We just saw it a couple of episodes ago, but
Clues.
Data
It was
was
called Clues. Yeah.
yes, Clues. Data was again, because of his abilities, was like the main key to solving this thing. And again, I felt like Data was observing everybody in this episode, like, I'm observing your decline, and I am watching you deal with whatever it is that you're dealing with as a human that I don't have to deal with. But I'm more just observing it than participating in or trying to fix it. I'm just going to watch it, and that's what makes him like the great character on this show to me.
Yeah, and every Star Trek series has a version of this. They need the cheat code. They need the wild card. They need the exception. Not just for the storylines, which is like they learn about humanity. They question humanity. They are curious about humanity. They reveal things about our own humanity that we hadn't thought of, because they go, oh, so why do you treat yourself this way? Blah, blah, blah. We go, oh, good point. Thanks. Spock in the original series. Data in this series, Odo in Deep Space Nine, the emergency holographic doctor in Voyager, right? He was that guy. In Enterprise, we have T'Pol. And so on. It just goes up the list of, they have this one that, not just in the story, but also just because they're the ones that are immune, or they have they're stronger Vulcans, so everybody else passes out, but this one can survive it, or Data's memory doesn't get wiped out because he's an android, or Odo doesn't get affected by this because he's just a changeling. It doesn't bother me, that kind of thing. But it's an important character.
And usually the backdrop behind this characteristic is the ability to not have feelings in certain moments, right? Spock is emotionless. Data is emotionless. Odo is essentially emotionless, right?
Totally.
It's like I don't have feelings, so I'm not using emotions to make this decision, right? So it's all logic, it's all practicality, it's all calculations and decision making and that kind of rationality when you're approaching problem solving. But yeah, it's the cheat code, and Data is a fun guy to watch him observe go through the motions of watching him understand that he is a cheat code. He's that's his journey of self-discovery. Like,
right.
It's like he said to the captain, he said, I'll do my best, Captain. Okay. He said, Data, it may come up to you. I have to, you'll be in command of the ship. It's on you, Data. I need you to save us. He says, I'll do my best, Captain. Like, he's not like, I got this, I'll do this. It's just like, well, I'll do my best. And if my best is good enough to help everyone survive, then that's what it is. If it's not, then I guess that's what it is too.
Yeah, it's kind of like in sports. They say your strength is your weakness. So if you shoot a lot of 3-pointers and you're really good at it, that's cool. But if you're not making threes, it's actually your weakness. You're going to lose the game because you rely on the three. In this case, it's more like the reverse. Your weakness is your strength, right? Data Data perceives his weakness to be that he's not human, or he's not human enough, and he endeavors to become human. But that's also his superpower, is that now he's not susceptible to all of our weaknesses, whether it's emotional weakness, whether it's logical fallacies, whether it's physical limitations. So it's, for him, it's his weakness, or perceived weakness is his strength. Interesting character, but it was definitely fun watching all the actors act tired and out of it, because they all nailed it. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fun thing to do as an actor, just act tired.
Yeah, when I knew it was a fun thing to do was when Picard was in that turbo lift getting abducted by the light.
Yeah.
And when the doors opened on him, that looked like the most fun Picard's had in a moment, just playing that scene out a little bit. So yeah, no, I also really love Dr. Crusher in this episode. She also played the tired really well. The whole forgetfulness, the whole like fatigue, mental fatigue. I thought she played that very well. I also think that Picard played it very well. You mentioned Riker earlier, but the mental fatigue that comes. Geordi had a moment with it. Right?
Totally.
And he's always Mr. On Point, like he knows all the answers and he's just got it all together. And even he was like,
Yeah.
and so it was fun to watch that, because one thing that we can all kind of empathize with that particular thing is, I don't know, I feel like everybody's gotten to a place of fatigue where they're mentally just checked out, and I feel like they're just, you're physically there, but you're just not there. And because of lack of sleep, because of mental fatigue, maybe, just going partying hard too much, too long. It could be a lot of different reasons, hangovers, but there's those moments where you're like,
Totally.
My brain's not working.
Yeah. The only one that was kind of the exception that was funny was Worf. Like, he was mostly like, he wanted to kill himself, which is kind of weird, but his symptom was that he was late for stuff. And they didn't even explain it. He just said, I was detained. I'm like, is this supposed to be a joke? I don't get it. Like, that was the one thing where I was like, what is this? What does that mean? What's going on? What are we supposed to infer from this? I don't know, really.
No, he said, but he delivered that line. I thought that was one of Worf's best lines when he said, "I feel fear." The way he delivered it, and the moment I felt that moment, and actually it was one of the most meaty things that they've given Worf to do, other than I think the scenes with his brother. But they don't give him too much, full acting, give opportunities to get into something. And I thought that he got a chance to with the whole suicide, feel fear moment, and he knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I loved it. I was actually liked everybody's performance. Everybody's performance was solid and fun and interesting. Speaking of solid and fun and interesting, it's time for the home run. I felt like I was pulling it out of your ear. It's like, whoa, what did I find
What
here?
is that?
It is time for the 7th rule home run of the episode. What do you think, Strzok? Who gets today's home run of the day?
Home run of the day. Yeah, I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna go with Sherry Goodharts, who wrote this story. It had a nice feel for it. It had this haunted feel. It accomplished some of the goals that I think other episodes were trying to accomplish, as far as a little bit creepiness, a little bit hauntedness, a little bit of that, but played in a practical way, played in a scientific way, played in a science-based way, and so I like that twist on it. So Sherry's going to get that the home run for me for writing this, and performance-wise, I think Patrick Stewart walks away with the most memorable effect on me in this episode.
Yeah, he is. Patrick Stewart is starting to be very consistent in how good his acting really is. Like his subtle acting. He'll just sit there and just kind of, or he'll hem and haw, or he'll move an eyebrow. Or there'll be something. It's very subtle, but we know exactly what he's going through. He conveys it so well, and it could be comedic, it could be sad, or disappointed, or pensive. But he really, I mean, like, wow, he is really good. I mean, I already knew that, but watching this now, I'm like, man, especially starting now, like the third and fourth season, they're giving him more to chew on, or maybe he's more comfortable in the role.
I think he's filling the shoes of the role. I think he's feeling comfortable with the role. I'll give you an example of Joe to just reaffirm what we're saying. The scene in the opening scene, Troy says, "I want to go with you to Riker on the away, to go visit the ship." And they exit out of the quarters, and Picard has the final solo shot, and he does this kind of suspicious look that he's done now a couple of times before in the openings of these episodes, where he's like, "I'm not quite sure, something is fishy." Let's say a look of suspicion, and it's a great look. I love that they closed on that look, and I feel like he's starting to master that look of suspicion, that look of inquisitive, that kind of query. Like, I'm not sure what's going on, but I sense something. Kind of the captain's intuition look,
Ooh.
and I'm feeling that in this fourth season, especially the last couple of few episodes. I feel like he's mastering that. So once again, yeah, Picard jumps out as the most memorable performance to me.
I'm going to agree with you there, but I'm going to give the home run of today's episode to Deanna Troi or Marina Sirtis, just because, she doesn't get to flex her muscles too often. She got to this time. She did great. She looks great. Like these big eyes with terror in her eyes. Apparently the story is that she said that she wanted more action. So they gave her more action, on this stunt of like floating in the air or something like that. But then apparently she's afraid of heights. So then she instantly regretted it. And so she says, she's quoted as saying, "That look of terror in my eyes is real. It's not, I'm not acting. It's from being up on this harness or whatever." So that's kind of a funny and interesting story. But home run of the episode to Marina Sirtis, among many other doubles and triples, I'd say. Here are some other people that are no strangers to doubles. I don't know what that means. Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Seagull, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, and Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, my live from Tokyo, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, who will teach you some things about bugs, that's for sure, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Dylan Powell, Peter Draymore, Chris Garris, and of course, Jason Oken and Greg K. Wickstrom. All right, that's it for us, everybody. We're going to take a very super lightning fast break, and we'll be right back with the free-for-all. And please make sure to go to patreon.com/the7th-rule. Become a part of this glorious team. Once again, that's patreon.com/the7th-rule, or just patreon.com, and search for the 7th Rule. Follow us on the 7th Rule on all your favorite social media. Hit the bell icon for notifications. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a 5-star rating and a nice review if you're listening in. And we'll be right back on the 7th Rule. Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the 7th Rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the free-for-all with Melissa Longo.
Hello.
Jason M. Oken.
Hi, everybody.
Has the title of today's episode behind him. We've got Chris McGee, cool shirt.
Salutations.
Allison Leach Hyde's also got a cool shirt. It's a Cisco Kid. And the Matt Boardman is a glutton for terrifying things behind him. Oh, so is Melissa, actually. All right. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Well, I'm gonna say this was like a 6-7.
Which one? Oh. Does anybody else have any guesses that
I'll
doesn't
go
already
6-8.
know?
I'll go 6-8. It's probably in that neighborhood.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say 6-2.
I'm gonna go
Allison
high
said
6-7.
same.
I'm going to go 7-2.
Whoa!
Oh, okay.
Rest in peace, Dikembe. All right. The answer, of course, is, are we going whoever gets the closest without going higher
Over.
Yeah,
Over.
Price is Right style. Exactly.
All right. The winner is Jason M. Oken, 7.1. But the closest would be Matt Boardman,
Yes.
Okay.
7.1. That's kind of surprising.
All right.
I didn't catch any non-appearance mentions. Did I miss any? All right.
Guess not.
I feel like this episode was ripe for some sorts of or some kinds of. Am I wrong? What did we have?
It does seem like it, doesn't it? But we only had one. Gillespie and Ten Ford, paranoid and starting a mutiny, says, well, I think it's some kind of experiment.
Right. Excellent.
But didn't he say that? Oh, maybe you're right.
This
I
isn't
thought-
non-appearance mentions. There aren't like rules to it.
No,
It's just like-
no, but I thought I heard he's treating us like some kind of lab rat.
Oh.
Yeah,
maybe.
he said, well, I think it's some kind of experiment. You see, Captain Picard is trying to see how long we'll take it stuck here like rats.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So it's
That's the
all part of the
full line.
same thing. Mhm.
Okay.
Cool. Good work. All right.
Right.
Well, Melissa Longo,
Mhm.
incredible shirt, by the way. And you've
thanks.
tailored it to your favorite specifications, I guess, right? Because I don't think I remember it having flaps before in our
No.
store.
The neck needs to breathe.
Totally. What did you think of this particular episode?
Well, I didn't hate this episode. I was actually looking forward to watching it because I like scary stuff. I like scary movies and scary shows and Halloweeny stuff. So I was kind of looking forward to it. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it, but I definitely could relate to it in that I've had many, many times where I've been sleep deprived and acted wacky. But this scene gave me the heebie-jeebies, which
Mhm.
was really great. I was like, that's so creepy. It's so creepy. And there was one moment when the Betazoid guy was laying on the table, and I had to rewind it a couple of times. I think he did really well with not having very many lines. And but there was one moment where there's tear came down his face. It was like, wow, it was just one tear. It's like, oh wow. So, and the ensemble of this show is wonderful. It's a wonderful group of actors. And I have to give a shout out to Marina Sirtis, who I think doesn't get very much good material because I think she's a better actor than what she's given to play often. She had some wonderful moments in this, some really good moments where I felt her exhaustion and her annoyance and her frustration. And yeah, I think I would like to see her get more material that is deeper and with more depth, kind of like they give to Patrick Stewart or to Riker or to Data. I just don't think that she gets that meaty material. It's kind of surface level material that they give her to work with, because I think she can knock it out of the park.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff. Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. Lisa F. Longo, that is. Jason M. Oken, what's up with you? Did you love this episode or what?
Well, I guess it's no secret. It's not my favorite. There are things about it that are interesting. Certainly, Melissa Marina's performance is excellent. It's her episode, and she's wonderful in it. And I think that what holds it up, I think also the music, Ron Jones's music. It actually kind of harkened back to the first season. If you listen to the scores for 10001, whatever those numbers are, and We'll Always Have Paris, there was a lot of those themes in this one. It sort of harkened back to that. There was a little creepiness in the music. But I think for me, to some degree, this episode almost doesn't know what it wants to be. And I think some of it has to do with editing in it. I think the scene with Dr. Crusher and the corpses is probably where it worked right. There were a few other instances where it could have and should have been done differently. It's just, it ended up looking odd instead of creepy. And I'll get into that later because it was scripted differently and it would have come out perfectly had they actually edited the same way. For whatever reason, it certainly is slow, and I understand it was even slower when they cut it together. So they were trying to, I think, rescue it in editing, and I think something really got lost here. That's why the episode, I don't think it really knows what it wants to be. Again, there are some instances, and I'll mention them later, that really would have made it pop. But for me, it's really the music, Marina's performance, and again, I think it's, Les Landau usually does very good work, but I think it was really undermined by the editing in this episode.
Yeah. See, you kind of liked it then.
I'm very curious.
Thanks very much, Jason M. Oken. Chris McGee, your thoughts on this one?
Well, I only got a couple hours sleep last night, so maybe I'm going insane too. Despite the infamous nature of this episode, with the stretching out of the plot to fill the runtime, the repetition of certain phrases, and the generally slow pace of the episode, I still enjoy it. This is probably the closest thing we get to a Halloween episode in the series, because I don't count Sub Rosa as one. It may not technically be considered as such, but you can't deny that morgue scene is particularly the most frightening thing in the series, certainly to me. And I can understand Paramount's trepidation on having any holiday-themed episodes after Cat's Paw from the original series. Once again, the first thing I noticed in the episode is the great score by Ron Jones with those discordant notes that I'll never forget. Those of my generation, on a more lighthearted note, those of my generation might recognize Brian Tochi, the actor who played Ensign Lin in this episode, from such teenage fan favorites movies like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Revenge of the Nerds.
Police Academy.
Oh, yes. Police Academy as well. I forgot
both of them.
And it's a small thing, but I really appreciate Patrick Stewart's physical acting as the episode progresses, with him looking more tired, his head hanging slightly lower and hunched over more as the lack of sleep is getting to him. For the memorable quote, finally, it's kind of an interesting one. It isn't really related to the central plot, but I do remember it most of all, weirdly enough, and that's Keiko saying they're turning out to have these really weird polymorphisms.
Man, that was Keiko had the craziest lines. What
But she did so well with
was that like a
Some
test?
Technobabble, I guess.
Yeah, was that like a test where they're like, all right, if you want to be on this show, you got to say like 40 big words. Anyway, thanks very much, Dark Lord Chris McGee. Allison Leach Hyde is driving through the Mountain Time Zone northward. What do you think of this one?
Well, it is also not one of my favorite episodes. It is slow and a little clunky. I always get excited when we get to see Keiko and O'Brien because they're a ton of fun. And even when they're fighting, and they do tend to do it fairly frequently, but they do it well and with love. So, that's their marriage. So go for that. And again,
Oh,
no.
we're losing her.
episode, but I like Guinan was. Oh no! How about now?
Yeah,
Am I back?
yeah, we
Gotcha.
hear you now. So say that again, please.
Okay. Okay. So I love having Whoopi in episodes. I do feel that she was a little underutilized, and I would have liked more Whoopi. I like that Guinan wasn't particularly affected by this whole situation. And I think my favorite bit is when she pulled out her phaser and just started shooting the ceiling. That's setting number 1. Do you want to see setting number 2? So that's probably my favorite part of the episode. And I can never remember the title of this one, but I always remember the episode. As soon as Troy starts flying, I'm like, oh, it's this episode. This is the Troy flying episode. So that's how I remember it. And Marina's scared of heights. So this was terrifying for her. So when she asked for more action scenes, this isn't what she meant, but this is what she got. And so pure terror on her face is not acting in those scenes. That is just her being scared of heights. And I feel bad that that's how they gave her more action, because that's no fun. But on rewatches, do I skip it? No. Do I follow? Well, he doesn't give terror.
Good episode to fall asleep to, I guess. Allison, do you think that when Marina came in and said, I'd like more scenes, I'd like some more action, do you think that Riker came in and was like,
here I am? I mean, of course he would. Completely on brand for Riker.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll go for it. I also really loved the makeup, just making them look more and more tired throughout the episode. And the lighting cues, I thought also, some of it was really red and trying to make it, again, because, we're losing all the power. So I did like that parts of the episode.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde. Somewhere between New Mexico and Colorado. Maybe Utah. All right. Thank you very much. The Matt Boardman is up next. What did you think of this one?
Well, I love this episode, and I really do. I mean, it's up there among my favorite episodes, just because of the kind of the creepy vibe that it has. And as a kid, like, this scene behind me freaked the living tar out of me. It seriously did, and it still is. Like, even now, it still is disturbing to me, because you think about it, like, you turn around and all of a sudden all these dead bodies are sitting up. Like, that's a big nope. I'm going to nope myself right out of there. But it's watching it this time. It hit differently, because it's like, as an adult, I don't know if this episode was written by like a new parent or somebody who is just very much experienced in production, because the no sleep thing, it's legit. Like,
Totally.
I'll save it for things left unsaid, but I had an experience where I was functioning on very little sleep, and I legit hallucinated and saw something. But are there moments of this that are cheesy? Yes, but that's kind of infinite. Last Halloween I watched all of the Friday the 13th and all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, and they are not without their cheese factor. But and I will just say, and keeping it short, that like everybody else has said, the music on point. Ron Jones, I don't know what it is about him, but he always has the best outro music at the the end of the episode. It's like we've spent 39 minutes being creeped out, and then now we have this, like, kind of, all right, now that you've been creeped out, we're going to send you off with a little bit of happy music, like everybody's going to go to bed, everybody's going to get a nap, have a Snickers, and we're all going to be good in the morning.
It is Halloween.
Yeah. Great Halloween episode. And Snickers are delicious. Thank you very much, the Matt Boardman. All right. Jake's final take. Srock, any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I really enjoyed the scene between Worf and Troy when she's talking him out of suicide. I thought that was a very special moment, and I thought it played very well. I enjoyed, her initial reaction of calling security, but then she talked him out of it and held his hand as they walked out of the door. That little moment right there meant a lot to me. It felt like a special bond between two characters, and that's what friends do for each other. They show up for each other in big moments like that. So I like that. Um, Also, I liked when Guinan went full out Malcolm X and pull up the big gun and went, by any means necessary, we're going to have peace up in 10 forward. That was a big moment right there. So I enjoyed that a lot. I noticed this before, but again, it just pops out to me. They decorate the bedroom sets with plants above the head. They did that for Troy's bed. We've seen it in Riker's bedroom. And it would be nice to actually have a scientific kind of logical explanation of why that would be, as if these plants, produce certain amounts of oxygen and da da da, helping you have a better sleep, and these particular plants emit da 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 da. Give me a little bit of scientific mumbo jumbo. That would be great for me as just somebody who likes to observe the set dressing and is really curious about why everybody has plants behind them on the headboard. So that would be nice to just throw a little throw in for me. Another storyline that would have been great to kind of expand on, which has been expanded on in other movies, is the idea of communicating through dreams. In 1984, there was a movie called Dreamscape that I really loved as a kid. It was starring Dennis Quaid. Christopher Plummer was in it. And it's an old school movie, if you remember that, but it was about communicating, actually fighting in dreams in some degree. And then recently, as 2010, Leonardo DiCaprio did the movie Inception, another movie talking about communicating through dreams. So they could have taken this concept and actually made it their own Star Trek, a little bit more expanding just on that idea, because several movies have been made just off that idea. Yeah, and then the last thing I want to say is I really like the message that Dr. Crusher talks about how dreaming is important to human, health. And I would look at it as not only just dreaming as in dreaming in the sleep state, but also dreaming as a person, dreaming about having something in life, dreaming about achieving your goals, having dreams for yourself about what you want to do and see yourself as. I think those things is what advances humanity in general. Those kinds of dreams. We talk about the famous "I have a dream" speech, but that allowed us to have a collective dream about a positive place in which we can move towards. And I do think that dreaming, whether it's physically dreaming or dreaming aspirationally, is important to the human condition. So those are my last final takes.
Yep. Good stuff. Thank you very much. All right. That's it for us, everybody, if you can believe that. Thank you to the Matt Boardman, Allison Leach Hyde, Chris McGee, the Dark Lord, Jason M. Oak, and Melissa Longo. For myself, Sirach Lofton, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, thank you all for hanging out with us. It's been fun. And we will see you next time. It has been, right? And until then, always remember the seventh rule.